In this video, we'll give you 10 sneaky starts for week 10 of the fantasy football season. I'm Jim Coventry, joined by Anthony Cervino of RotoWire. Anthony, at quarterback, I do like Kirk Cousins this week. Going into last week, his great games only came against Tampa Bay, and it wasn't like he played a great defense with Dallas, but he does throw for 3 touchdowns, only 222 yards. But here's the thing. Falcons are playing the Saints this week. The Saints can't stop the run. But what the Falcons have shown us is they aren't going to run 40 times. They're going to do a balanced offense. They will take 20, 25 carries, maybe even 28, run it down your throat. They'll throw for another 25 to 30, but those are really efficient. Saints trade away Marshawn Lattimore. They don't get a pass rush, which is huge for Kirk Cousins. I just think Atlanta scores at will here. The yardage might not be great, but 2 to 3 touchdowns definitely in play. So if you need a quarterback one, Kirk Cousins should be the fix for you. Who do you like at quarterback?
Jim, I'm going to go back to Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was outstanding last week against the Colts, over 27 quarterback points. He throws for 3 touchdowns. He also threw a couple of picks, which can hurt you depending on your league format. But overall, Sam Darnold was very good, 290 yards passing. And he's been productive for our fantasy teams for the better part of all season long. And this matchup, last week against the Colts, that was a good matchup. Now he gets a great matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a team, it looks like they quit on Doug Peterson. It looks like the locker room is gone. And teams like this, they fall apart. And we saw Jalen Hurts last week pop for over 30 fantasy points in this matchup. And now we get Sam Darnold and his, I would call them elite weapons. He has TJ Hawkinson back. I think this could be another big week for Sam Darnold, over 20 fantasy points at a minimum.
At running back, I like Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you look at his snap share, it's not inspiring, 30 to 40%. But yet, look, he gets 13 targets over his last 3 games, averaging 13 touches in the 4 games. So when he's on the field, he's touching the ball. And that interior offensive line has been very good at run blocking this year, which they were not that last year in Tampa Bay. And Irving also has at least 77 scrimmage yards in 3 of his last 4 games. They're playing the Niners. Name recognition would say, oh man, you can't run on the 49ers. That's not the case this year. 49ers are a bad run defense. And even if the 49ers get out to a big lead, Irving can catch passes. So I think he's almost game script proof here, so that you love to get Bucky Irving in your lineup. Anthony, who's your running back?
At running back, I'm going to go to Tyrone Tracy. And Tyrone Tracy has had a few good games since he's taken over this backfield. But in 2 out of his past 3 games, they've been subpar, under 7.9 PPR points in both week 7 and last week against Washington. But even last week, he still got good enough volume, 16 for 66 on the ground, and only 1 target for 3 yards. And we know he's a good pass catcher. I can see an uptick in pass catching opportunities. He was also missing that touchdown. And when he scores, he normally gives us a good fantasy outing. Since taking over, he's getting well over 16 touches a game. He's given us 2 games over 100 yards rushing. And if we're looking for a bounce back spot, it is this week. He gets the Carolina Panthers, and we know how bad this Carolina defense is at defending the run. They are getting gashed by everyone. I think if you are looking for, or if you were questioning on whether or not to use Tyrone Tracy, I wouldn't question it this week. This is a spot where he can give us potentially the best game of the season against a Carolina defense where they haven't been able to stop the running back, not named Javonte Williams.
If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial. No credit card needed. Head on over to rotowire.com/Jim and you can check out all of our content. If you like it, join the team. If not, we're just happy you took a look and checked this out. Wide receiver. I like Sterling Shepard of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's had 5 targets and 2 rushes in last week's game. Even back to week 8, he had 5 targets. It's not great volume. I do expect the 49ers to have a good offensive game against Tampa. So that means I expect them to have a lead, which means Baker Mayfield's going to have to pass the ball. Sterling Shepard will line up on the outside, the inside. They'll get him in motion. That means he's probably going to avoid the tougher cornerback matchup, and he still gets separation quickly. Plays about 60% of the snaps. I do expect him maybe even get 7 or 8 targets here, and there's always a chance that Sterling Shepard can score a touchdown on this one. So again, deep play, but I like Sterling Shepard. Anthony, who's your wide receiver?
I'm going to go with Jaylen Waddle. And by name, he's not a sneaky start, but with his production or lack thereof he's given us, I think a lot of people are worried about using him. But this should be the week, if any, that he can get right against the Rams. Now, I am worried about target volume. He's seen under 6 targets in 3 straight games. In 2 of those games, he's only drawn 2 targets. He got lucky enough last week to score a touchdown, but it was not a good fantasy week. He's not given us double-digit PPR points since week 1. This week he gets the Rams, and this should be a good opportunity to turn it around. This is a projected shootout if we look at the Vegas total. We know both offenses can fire off points, and this is a Rams defense, especially in their secondary. You can beat them a little bit. We've seen wide receivers go off on this team this year. Last week, JSN and Lockett both had really good fantasy days, and this should be a week, if any, where we could insert Jaylen Waddle in our fantasy lineups and expect quality production.
At tight end, I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith of the Miami Dolphins. Jonnu Smith had more targets than Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle last week. Just sit on that a second. Now, in the 2 games Tua Tagovailoa has been back, Smith has had 6 targets in each game. He's caught 9 of those 12 targets. Last 4 games, averaging 54 yards. The Rams allow the 7th most fantasy points to tight ends. Like Anthony mentioned, this game should be a shootout. Miami's going to need to score points. Defenses don't have the personnel to worry about Jonnu Smith when they have other weapons like Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. So, look, ride the train. Jonnu Smith will keep rolling. Anthony, who's your tight end?
At tight end, I'm going to continue to attack the Carolina Panthers matchup. I love Theo Johnson of the New York Giants. He's starting to come on a little bit. He's had back-to-back games now with at least 3 receptions and 35 yards. Last week, he goes 3 for 51 and a touchdown on a season-high 6 targets. Now he gets the best tight end matchup on paper against the Carolina Panthers. I think this offense, when it comes to throwing the football, it's stalled. I've said it before. Without Andrew Thomas, Daniel Jones has to look to other players to help out. I think Theo Johnson down the stretch could be one of them. I'm using Theo Johnson and expecting quality production this week against Carolina.
My wild card plays another tight end, Juwan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints. Juwan Johnson has at least 41 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. Look, New Orleans is decimated a wide receiver. And as of this recording, it's hard to think Chris Olave plays with a second concussion in less than a month. But even if Olave plays, there is very little in the way of passing options for Derek Carr. I expect Atlanta has a lead in this game. New Orleans going to have to pass. And remember, Derek Carr struggles with pressure. And what do you do when they're under pressure? You get the ball out quickly in the middle of the field and your tight end. And that's Juwan Johnson. So Juwan Johnson should get at least a few catches here. Atlanta does give up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. So Juwan Johnson's my wild card. Anthony, who do you like as your wild card?
My wild card, I'm going to go to Jacksonville's Parker Washington. He's a real sneaky start. Back-to-back games since seeing increased playing time. He's had at least 7.1 PPR points, and last week a season-high 6 targets. In also those 2 games, 3 receptions, at least 41 yards. I get it. It is not sexy to start this guy, but you're getting Minnesota. This is a team that you should be able to throw on. On paper, they're the easiest matchup for fantasy wide receivers. I'm going to expect Minnesota to kind of run away with this football game, which means there should be plenty of garbage time opportunities for Parker Washington to give us a high floor.